Tradition of Malawi. The subject of food is to the Malawian one which is particularly near to his heart. This is why so much of his life is bound up in one way or the other with the production, storage, preparation, and consumption of food. Given to a group of foods making up the Malawian's diet since time immemorial is Nsima, which is also the name of the central component of the foods. Therefore, Nsima is a compound name of the culinary tradition of Malawian as well as the name of a single component of this group of foods. The word Nsima is in Chichewa language, which is the most widely spoken language in Malawi. Even the most of the other 15 languages call it almost the same with slight variation at the beginning of the word, calling it either Sima or Nchima or Etima. However, Nsima is known by the author's name in other languages such as Bugari in Chisukwa, and even this comes with a variation at the beginning with some calling it Ugari in Chiao. Therefore, all the people of Malawi recognize Nsima or Bugari as their own culinary heritage. Nsima, thus the central component, and the accompanying components, popularly known as side dishes, is an afternoon and evening meal tradition. Traditionally, it is a communal meal where a number of Nsima dishes are brought from the households that make up the family or village. Maize, chimanga, is grown throughout Malawi in mainly small fields at household and village levels for subsistence consumption. Chimanga is the staple food of the country. Nsima is mainly prepared from flour of maize. However, flour from other types of foods such as cassava, millets, and sorghum are widely used to make Nsima. The processing of the flour, ufa, in the village and town varies little throughout the country. The first stage is where the maize is pounded in a mortar. During the process, the bran becomes separated and the grain slightly broken. At intervals during the pounding, the grain is tipped into a flat basket, lichero, and the bran winnowed off. Pounding proceeds until all the grains are free from bran. The resulting clean, slightly broken grain is known as libande or mpale in most districts. Today, however, the first pounding can be done at the shelling mills. The grain, mpale, prepared as above, is now soaked in hot water in a pot kept specially for the purpose. Normally, the grain is left to soak for at least 3 days. Fermentation sets in fairly rapidly so that it is necessary to change the soaking water to avoid a sour taste in the flour. The soaked grain is taken from the pot, given a thorough washing in several changes of water, and then tipped into the mortar for the pounding to flour. After a spell of pounding, the grain is tipped into a flat basket or wire sieve and the flour winnowed or sifted off. Pounding proceeds until all but the very hardest fragments of the grain have been reduced to flour. The flour is then spread on a mat until it is thoroughly dry. The fine flour is known as ufa woyera, white flour, while that with coarse grains is called ngaiwa, grain meal. Ngaiwa contains the entire grain and hence all the valuable nutrients. A great deal of the ngaiwa used in the country is ground in small hand mills, and the maize from which it is milled is usually not soaked. There are slight variations throughout the country, but the following methods seems most commonly used in cooking Nsima, the central component. A pot is half filled with water and put on the fire. While the water is boiling, 1 or 2 handfuls of flour are added and well stirred to make a thin gruel, pala. This is allowed to boil and thicken up for about 5 to 10 minutes. The bulk of the flour is now added, a handful at a time, accompanied with vigorous stirring by means of the long porridge stick ntiko, until the mixture is of the right texture. The final mixture differs considerably from community to community or person to person, some preferring a harder product than others. The Nsima is divided out by means of large wooden spoons, chibande, into the food bowls or plates. The other components accompanying Nsima are of a great variety. The most common and well-liked throughout the country are different kinds of leaves such as pumpkin, haricot bean, cowpea, and cassava leaves. Preparation of the cooked dish of these leaves requires special knowledge. The leaves are mostly boiled, and a traditional form of a potage called chidulo as well as ground peanuts can be added. Apart from the fresh or green leaves, a very large range of wild leaves is eaten. The most common of them are bonongwe, 3 or 4 varieties of amaranth, ntambe, a wild variety of cowpea, and limanda, one of the many kinds of hibiscus. All the leaves mentioned can be dried. When dried, they are called mfutso. Usually, the leaves are spread in the sun for a few hours in order to reduce their bulking by wilting. When they are dried, the leaves become very crisp and dark-colored and palatable. The cooking is the same as for fresh leaves. After the leaves, the pulses are next commonly used in ndiwo. 4 kinds are in very common use, namely haricot beans, cow, pigeon, and field peas. The most popular are the many varieties of the haricot bean ombranda, chimbamba, Phaceolus vulgaris. The most commonly grown kind is the cowpea or kobe, nseula. To cook, the beans are covered with water and the pot boiled until the skins begin to split. The flesh is very soft, and what little water remains has formed a thick kind of bean soup. The presence of this soup is an essential part of the dish as it coats the lumps of nsima as they are dipped into it. In addition to the leaves and the pulses, there are a number of other vegetables that are used for ndiwo. They include okra, ntando or telele, lufa, chikupule, pawpaw, papaya, tomatoes, pwetekere, egg fruit, biringanya, meat, nyama, and fish, nsomba, are the 2 most popular kinds of ndiwo. Almost everything in the way of nyama, all parts of the beast, are eaten. However, there are taboos preventing the members of a community bearing the name of a certain animal from eating that particular beast. In traditional villages, domestic animals, cattle, goats, pigs, and sheep are rarely killed unless for a very good reason, such as a feast, for a festivity, wedding, or funeral. Mutton is not as popular as beef or goat meat. Today, game amounts to small animal hunted with dogs, and big game is rarely killed. A great variety of fish are available in Lake Malawi, but only a few kinds are caught in large amounts. The commonly eaten are the many different kinds of tilapias, jambo, mpende, kayawa, and the catfish, miramba, chikuta, sapua, Barilla species, sanjika, mpasa, nchira, kampango, and the small fish known collectively as matemba, or the still smaller white bait like usipa, to name a few. The fish come both fresh and dried. Fruits, zipatso, such as bananas, ntochi, pawpaws, mangoes, guavas, oranges, plums and peaches are much liked, but with the exception of bananas, are occasionally planted. A very large number of kinds of bananas are grown, both for eating raw and for cooking. Kudya nsima, eating nsima, is a communal tradition in most traditional families in Malawi. However, in towns, people can eat alone or with a few friends. Most restaurants in Malawi have nsima on their menu and provide alternative side dishes, including most of the traditional ones mentioned above.
Ine ndine sabutiye mpoma mwabwera kuti muzaunike chikhalidwe chakapikidwe cha chakudya cha nsima.
Sub-traditional authority Mpoma of Kasungu district of the central region of Malawi acknowledges that nsima is the culinary tradition in the north, center, and southern region of Malawi.